And good afternoon, good evening, folks. This is Art Shea. It's time for the show. Let's be reasonable, right? So it's our job to be reasonable in the face of nonsense that we hear all the time, right? So this show is this is like 80 episode 84, and my goal is really to get to 100 and then talk to somebody about the 100 episodes and see if we can start crafting a new show. But this is just to kind of, I guess you would say, create some chops and so more so for my benefit than yours, but at the end of the day, it's probably beneficial all the way around if you take the time, right? So anyway, that being said, folks, hey, look, we're here to talk about the economic message. I got to tell you, I guess first and foremost that wow, it's been 2 weeks since I saw you, right? And the reason why I haven't seen you in 2 weeks is because I guess what, I got work to do, right? So um, work takes precedence. Work pays the bills. This is just for kicks, but in saying all that, when we last spoke, I was telling you how I wish that Gretchen Whitmer made it onto the ticket. Well, she didn't make it. Neither did Josh Shapiro. It turned out to be Governor Walz. And I'm here to tell you that Waltz. Yeah. Anyway, I'm here to tell you. Look, if you know anything about me, I'm going to get your name wrong. I'm sorry. I just am. I'm going to get it wrong. I don't mean anything by it. I'm just going to get it wrong. So, Governor Tim Walz, he is the vice presidential candidate running on this ticket. And he actually turns out to be a pretty decent guy, right? I think he's got plenty of energy. I think he's got a good message coming out of the state of Minnesota. They got one of the lowest tax rates in the union, right? So, how could you do that and be some stark crazed liberal maniac, right? So my job really, look, all the progressive and liberal labels and all that kind of stuff. I like looking at the economics. Are the economics feasible? Do the economics work? And if the economics works, to me, the rest of that stuff really doesn't matter. So anyway, so he turns out to be a pretty decent guy. So didn't get Gretchen Whitmer, but I'm okay. All right, and I did tell you going into the convention, um, looking for her to draw even or really maybe 2 or 3 points better going into the convention. And I'm anticipating still about +5, +7 coming out of the convention with, again, escape velocity. Because as her number gets better, I think you're going to see Trump kind of shrink and shrivel and really start to implode. People all around him start to implode because they'll see it slipping away. They'll see it slipping away. I'm not going to say that this is Obama type energy, but it is clearly not Biden type energy, right? So, is it close to Obama type energy? I don't think so. Personally, I don't think so. There's energy here. Definitely momentum. That energy is in this space, but I don't think it's really that Obama type change you can believe in type energy, but it's good energy. It's very good energy. Uh, Given the fact that when you look at Donald Trump and his message of the doom and gloom and just the low energy, as I think it's Joe Scarborough talks about. He Donald Trump reminds him of Fat Elvis during the early 1970s. So and that's where we are. I mean, I think this guy is really same old theme, same old message. Nobody is bigger and better than him, and I mean, he's arguing about crowd sizes. He's way off message. Way off message. But anyway, we'll talk about this article and then we'll talk a little bit more. I'm going to try to hold this to like 15 minutes, so I better get moving. So, anyway, Trump spoke yesterday and he's talking about new tariffs that he wants to put in place and other takeaways from the economic speech that he gave yesterday. This article by Vivian Salama and Owen Tucker Smith and Harriet Torrey. This comes out of the Wall Street Journal. Look, there were seven major takeaways. Let's just go ahead and hit them. Are you better off than you are now? Look, bottom line on this right now, folks, is this: the economy is the best economy in the world today. All right. The unemployment rate is at 4% right now. So it's pretty much right at target. It's been hovering around 3.7, 3.9 for quite some time. It's at 4%. I think it's at like 4.3%, right? So a little higher, but that's the reason why the Fed is about to tap on the brakes and start cutting the Fed fund rate. So anyway, that's a good thing, but most people don't feel it. And the reason why they don't feel it is because of the inflation, right? So are you better off? Relatively speaking, the economy is better off, but individuals can't feel it because the weight of those inflationary pressures are on their back. And some people will attach that to the Biden Harris administration. I'm here to tell you, I'm going to attach that to the Trump administration. And it is there because of the tariffs that are in place. Folks have to keep in mind tariff, the way that we experience tariffs today didn't exist prior to Trump. So this is a hangover that you're experiencing, but I'll tell you more about that in a minute. Okay, bullet point number two. It's a pre-rebuttal. Harris is giving her economic talk tomorrow. I hope she has something very concrete to say. I think she needs the policy needs to have teeth to it, and there needs to be outlined objectives, things that they're going to get done on behalf of the American people. You just can't. I think the American people like it when you say stuff, but it has to be backed up and able to get it done. All right. So there must be a roadmap in saying, how do we get this done? Now, Democrats will say that there's price gouging going on and there's other things out there that are making the situation bad. And that could be true. But the message tomorrow must be easily digestible and must be obtainable and must be a good thing for the American people. They have to see the benefits of it. So, anyway, he's out front. He wanted to get his message out there and buttress it close to Harris's message, which she will be delivering tomorrow. So, that's point two. Point three, talking about prices for bacon, prices for groceries, prices for all of these goods, right? Things are much higher. And there's a reason for that. And the reason for that is because of the inflation. But the other reason is the tariffs. But I'm here to tell you there's a third reason for that too. And that's because if you look at those migrants who are coming across the border, check with anybody who hires them. And I will assure you that they're hiring them at a higher rate than what they were 2 years ago. So there's that too. Anyway, migrants are making more money. Anyway, so that's point three. Point four, the deviation going into personal attacks. Look, anytime you have to resort to ad hominem attacks of your opponent, I'm here to tell you, you're losing the race. So if he wants to lose, he'll just continue talking ad hominem about Kamala Harris and Tim Walz. Just go right ahead. But anyway, because you lose momentum. You're not talking about what you're going to do. You're just bad mouthing the other people. People want to know what you're going to do. And putting the spotlight on North Carolina, that's point five. Guess what? Bottom line is this. It all comes down to the Electoral College, right? Remember, the magic number is 270. How do you get to 270? For the Democrats, it's been through Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, and Michigan. And then they had to go down and they had to pick up Arizona, Nevada. And if you get someplace like Georgia, that's helpful, right? But that was the pathway. You get California, you get to 270, and you got a victory, right? But if you pick up North Carolina and you get Pennsylvania, Michigan, and Wisconsin, and you also end up getting Nevada, which is going to be close, but you get Nevada and you get Arizona, you won it there too. So by picking up picking up North Carolina, you could afford to lose Arizona and Nevada and still get California and still get your 270 number that you need. So anyway, if you get North Carolina, I got to tell you, if you get North Carolina, that to me tells me personally that not Michigan, Ohio and Florida could also be in play. I haven't seen any polling coming out of Ohio today or over the past few days, but I'm interested in seeing what the polls look like in Ohio because if they are within plus or minus five, let's say plus or minus four, plus or minus three, Democrats are there to play, and it's quite conceivable that they could win. That being the case, I could be in bed by 10 o'clock on election night because this race is over if you get Ohio and North Carolina. But anyway, the point was about North Carolina being a pivotal place. Social Security. Both parties winning with that issue. Guess what? I hear people tell me all the time that the government doesn't do anything right. I'm here to tell you, I think they've done something right when it comes to Medicare and Social Security. Those are two popular programs. Now, they're not the end all and be all, but if you look at any of the literature that they put out in front of you, they told you they weren't going to be the end all and be all, but they were there as a measure. This would be your little safety net. You were, required to build on top of that safety net, not to depend on it, not to depend on Social Security, depend on your retirement income, supplemented by Social Security. That's how that was supposed to work. And it pretty much works the way that it's designed to work. Now, you could argue about the tax rate for it and that FICA taxes that come out, somewhat, what, 6% plus another 6 from the employer. We could argue about that all day and we're blue in the face, but it turned out to be a pretty good program. Anyway, that being said, moving on, number 7, Trump was talking about bringing down energy costs. Now, I'm here to tell you, I don't know how you do that. I don't know what the measure would be to bring down energy costs. I mean, think about it this way. You buy a Big Mac today, and the Big Mac costs $6.50. I don't know what it costs, but I'm just saying $6.50 today. If you back up 3 years ago, would you say that was less or was it more? I'm going to tell you it was probably less, right? Because the cost of beef has gone up. The cost of beef has gone up. The cost of the bread has gone up. The cost of the packaging has gone up, right? So if all of these incremental costs have gone up, I'm not quite certain. It's not, and it's the same in the energy sector. If the incremental cost has gone up, how do you bring down the overall cost per unit? I don't necessarily know unless you're going to strong arm these executives and these energy companies. Now, if you do that, that's akin to what Republicans abhorred or would expect from Democrats. Now, if Republicans end up doing that, that's actually awfully strange that they would do that. It's awful strange. And I would imagine they would want something in return on that. And I'm not sure exactly what the energy companies could give them or what the administration could give them in return. Not sure what that would be. So I don't know how he plans to do that. There's a question mark there, something I probably should look into in greater detail. But the other thing I will tell you is this. When it comes to the Republican apparatus over the past 40, 50 years, just remember, it looks like this. You have Republicans under the banner of supply side economics. What's the hallmarks of supply side economics? It's cutting taxes, cutting spending. Those two pieces, right? We see them cut taxes over the past 40 plus years. They find it very hard to cut spending, right? And that pretty much is the death knell to the increase in revenue that they would expect and everything else. Because if you can't cut spending, then cutting the taxes really, you just put yourself at a deficit. But anyway, but when you look at that, see, they have control. That message has ruled the day over the past 50 years, and they have control of, let's say, levers of government like Congress, like the House of Representatives today. They may not have control next year, but that thinking has permeated through both sides or both chambers, the House and the Senate, and then both parties, Republican and Democrat, that supply side economic thinking. And we see that Republicans have control majority of the state houses, right? They control the ballot boxes through gerrymandering, right? They control the districts, the congressional districts by gerrymandering. They control the economic landscape when it comes to the EDCs and the chambers of commerce. So, can they lean on these individuals at your EDCs and especially the Chamber of Commerce to comply in order to cut prices? The only way I think they would be able to do that is to provide them with some deal. And I don't know what that deal is out there, but I would imagine they probably do know. I mean, I really don't know, but that's how that works. So anyway, look, Kamala Harris's message tomorrow needs to be impactful. And I don't know what she's going to say, but I'm going to give you my version of what she should be saying. Okay, so when I look back over the last 50 years, I see supply side economics and I see the tenets of cutting taxes, cutting spending, trickle down economics. You know, you cut the spending and you cut the taxes on these uber rich people, and supposedly that builds opportunities for people lower on down the line. But we see that really is not the case. And it turns out the supply side economics over the past 50 plus years turns out exactly to be what uh, Herbert Walker Bush said it was: voodoo economics, right? So when you look at supply side economics over the past 50 years versus what you saw from the 1930s to 1980, and I'll pull that up. And this is just regarding manufacturing. The message that Kamala Harris needs to be discussing is that what you should be asking yourself when you're asking about, are you better off? You need to take that and take the last 50 years into consideration versus the 50 years previous. So look at 1930 to 1980, and then look at 1980 to 2024 today. Look at those two periods. And if you look at those two periods, you're going to see a tale of two cities. You're going to see an economic policy brought to you by Democrats and Keynesian thinking during the 1930s to 1980 that grew the middle class and created somewhere in the neighborhood of 10 million manufacturing jobs. From 1980 going forward, what you see is Republicans and supply side economics has lost 10 million manufacturing jobs. And when is that okay? So you may think things are better, but it's a trend, people. It's a trend. And you're on the downside of this trend over the past 50 years. And you're on the downside of this trend because Republicans, well, this is their baby. And you don't even hear them running on their economic prowess. You just hear them running, bashing Democrats about theirs. Okay? So there's a message there that she needs to craft. And it needs to be a salient message that sets up that dichotomy. There is definitely a tale of two worlds here. And you could say that the world that everybody wants, that world where the middle class is the envy of the world and the rest of it, you had that during the 1930s, 40s, 50s, and 60s and 70s. You had that. You had the build out of suburban America. You had all of the infrastructure that was put in place. You had the urbanization, the sprawl. All that stuff happened during that particular period. Everything that happened since the 1980s, you've just seen job after job after job after job going overseas. And it went overseas by design. By design, supply side economics. So they just need to tell that message. And then, the other message that needs to be talked about, and look, I'm going to hit 2 minutes and then I'm going to get out of here, is the issue with inflation and tariffs. Those issues run tandem to one another. And you have to remember, tariffs, folks, if you really think about it, tariffs have been under control for a long period of time. This is our window on tariffs. Really, I mean, for the most part, you say tariffs are come in somewhere around 1.5 to about 2%. Inflation, the target window is about 2%. So when you see the tariff rate go from 1.59 in 2018 up to 13.78 in 2019, that's the Trump tariffs. And he's telling you he wants more of that. Well, I'm here to tell you that 13.78%, that's like cramming. That's like a 1 year increment. That's like 7 years worth of tariffs crammed into a 1 year increment. So that's going to be with you, really, I think, for another 2 or 3 years. Now, Trump in the article was talking about how you have less buying power today than you had with him. And he's right. But he's right only because, ladies and gentlemen, of the tariffs. So when you look at the history of the median income, understand this: that at its height, This is 2019. The median income was $78,250. It came down in 2000 and has steadily been going further down since then. Folks, I'm here to tell you that corresponds to the tariffs. That 13.9% or say 8%, right there. It corresponds to that number at the height. So that doesn't mean tariffs are good, but I'm just telling you, this is where that slide happens because of those tariffs. Really, before those tariffs, 2018, this is an astounding number in my. This is what's astounding about this number is the fact that you go from 73 median household income to 78. That's a $5,000 increase in the median income. Okay, but you got to remember they cut taxes for the wealthy. And I'm not quite, I'm gonna have to get the ruling on how median income is derived because that's a big number, a big jump. My point that I'm telling you is that I look for median household incomes to settle back to really, if the numbers that we have on median income or go out to 2023, and I think it's like 75 point or 74,580, right? I would imagine the number for 2024 is probably more like 73.8. And it is that because of, ladies and gentlemen, the inflation and the tariffs. So tariffs are a horrible idea. Every Republican neocon during the 1960s, 70s, and 80s told you so. And these guys in MAGA are doing something totally different. And the American people, you're paying for it. Now, they can pass it off and try to blame Democrats for it, but I'm here to tell you it's definitely a Republican phenomenon. And it's definitely a MAGA phenomenon. I can't blame it on the neocons because I'm here to tell you neocons wouldn't have done this. So that tells you I don't hate Republicans. So anyway, folks, look, I don't know what our economic message will be tomorrow, but I hope it's of substance. And I hope it's something that the American people can latch on and take bits from and say, yeah, I can get along with that. I can go with that. Because I'm telling you right now, if you think the inflation is bad now, let him saddle on some more tariffs and you're going to see somebody will have to suffer. They probably if the Trump administration gets those tariffs, they're going to tell businesses they're going to have to suck up that cost because they don't want to pass it off to the American people. They will not want to pass that off to the American people. And I just don't see businesses doing that. And if they did do it, what does that say? What does that say to you? If businesses, and remember, I just told you the whole structure is really a Republican run structure. Everything from the EDC, that's the Economic Development Commissions, to the Chamber of Commerce, right? To the owning of the state houses, to the control of the electoral maps, right? To the control of the economic thinking around Washington, which is supply side economics. All of that runs in that line, folks. The problem is supply side economics. Now, I'm not here to tell you to just throw supply side economics out the window. No, there are some good things that have happened with supply side economics, but there are a ton of bad things that have happened too. There were great things that happened during that period between the 1930s and 1980. But there were also some bad things that happened as well. What I'm here to tell you, folks, is that we need to take the good from both of those systems and we need to be on our way to building a better system for the American people going forward. And that's the message. That's what she needs to tell them tomorrow. So, anyway, like and subscribe. Tell me what you think. What are your thoughts on tariffs, their relationship to inflation? What are your thoughts about how supply side economics, how the structure works? What do you think about Republicans controlling all of this over the past 50 years and blaming any of their detractions on Democrats? What do you think about that? Is that fair or is that crazy? You tell me. But anyway, like and subscribe, folks. Tell me what you think. We'll talk about it later. Hope you have a great evening.